Before we start this one, I just want to take a minute to show some appreciation to everybody that watched my most recent review for WWF No Mercy. It has gained a tremendous amount of views, quicker than I think any other video I've posted in quite a few years of YouTube. So again, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you that watched the video. I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoy this one. Ah yes, SmackDown 2, perhaps the greatest wrestling title on the PS1. Not that there's too much competition, but nonetheless, this one hit us hard with more wrestlers, more match types, more moves, and more excitement. And the craziest part? This one came out just months after its predecessor, hitting US retailers in November of 2000. The game would go on to sell an astonishing 3.2 million copies worldwide, and would even see a platinum re-release in PAL regions featuring the then freshly updated WWE branding. And no, you're not having deja vu. I did cover this game a few years back, but that was then and this is now. So let's take a look at what all the hype was about as we revisit WWF SmackDown 2 Know Your Role. The intro is an extended version of what we would see on SmackDown, the television show at the time, with some added clips thrown in just to spice things up, like popular catchphrases by wrestlers, and commentary by good old JR and Michael Cole.
What will happen tonight on SmackDown?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, so where do we start? How about the roster? This is quite the improvement over the last installment, with a total of 66 wrestlers to choose from here. We see a lot of famous faces return, and some newcomers to the series such as Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, Rikishi, and Taz. They also gave us more divas, with the likes of Trish Stratus and Lita joining the selection, bringing the total number to 9. Some notable updates to returning wrestlers include The Godfather appearing here as the Good Father, and The Undertaker, who now sports his American Badass attire, despite his previous Dead Man look appearing on the back of the box art. Look at that, right there. You can, however, create this look for Taker in the game's Create a Superstar mode, which, more on that in a bit. Some of the hidden wrestlers include guys like Billy Gunn, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mick Foley, and HBK, who appears here in his glorious DX attire from WrestleMania 14, one of my favorites. Big Show and Ken Shamrock were intended to be in the final game, but were removed before release. However, it's still possible to catch a glimpse of these models in some of the match types, such as the Royal Rumble, where they will sometimes appear as unknown participants. The entrance format from the previous title returns here, with Titantron videos playing behind in-game models of wrestlers performing their signature taunts. One upgrade is the addition of championships now appearing with the wrestlers during these introductions, which is a nice touch. Most wrestlers here feature accurate theme songs, but The Undertaker's American Badass theme was not licensed for this one, so he makes his way out to the Raw is War theme. Despite these more basic entrances, it's great to see lighting, pyro, and animations presented here pretty accurately, like Bossman flinging his nightstick around, or those oh-so-smooth dance moves of one Grandmaster Sexay. Oh, and the tag team entrances are a huge improvement over the previous entry, now featuring more character-specific animations. Once you're ready to rumble, you'll notice that things haven't really changed since the first game. X attacks, circle grapples, triangle runs, and square allows for blocks and counters, while shoulder buttons handle accessory movements like taunting and changing opponent focus. So yeah, it feels very much the same as the first title. But I mean, that was only like 6 months ago, so it's a safe bet there wasn't a lot of time spent on tweaking the game engine. But we would still see a few enhancements. The collection of moves has been expanded, including a bunch of new signatures and finishers for the game's packed roster, in addition to new moves for wrestlers from other promotions as well, adding depth to the level of roster expansion that one can accomplish through the Create a Superstar mode. The animations here are not as polished as what we'd see later on in the series, specifically during that beloved PS2 era, but given the quick gameplay and overall stylistic design of everything, these fit well. New moves like the Last Ride, Angle Slam, the Olympic Slam, and the Worm all look really good and blend into the mix seamlessly. Something else I always thought this game did well were the winning animations, which were much more basic in games of the past and even on the THQ games over on the N64. But here we see longer animations, some with the inclusion of climbing the turnbuckles or standing on the ropes. It's just a really good look here and gives us a glimpse into what proper entrances might have looked like for the game. And it's those little details that I can really appreciate, like the different stance animations, so tough guys like Taz look, well, tough, and goofballs like Scotty 2 Hotty kind of do this thing. It all adds a lot to the overall presentation of the game. Something that was left out of the first title and makes its glorious debut here are the double team moves. These are completed by sending your opponent into the turnbuckle nearest your tag team partner, where you will need to perform a grapple. These are fantastic, and the Dudleys alone feature quite the arsenal here, such as the second turnbuckle jumping powerbomb, that was up headbutt, and of course, the 3D. This new feature was something I was very excited about upon release, but it's a shame that due to the way in which they're executed, they cannot be performed in Tornado or really any non-tagging variety of matches. Some critics actually complained about the return of the quick arcade-style gameplay, citing its unrealistic nature with heavy wrestlers seemingly defying the laws of physics and not selling anything, and I mean, like, anything. But this quick gameplay mechanic was something that was praised during the first game's release just a half a year earlier, so I'm not sure why these opinions changed. Yeah, you'll see things like dropkick animations suddenly halted by a quick punch, or ladders pulled out straight from under you, or even 350-pound wrestlers thrown right out of the ring, but damn it, that's just part of the charm here. I feel that you have to know what you're getting into. If you're expecting a sim, you'll be let down, but for those looking for some intense, fast-paced, chaotic, and often humorous good times, you'll love this game for what it is. So clearly we see that gameplay hasn't really changed much here, but during that short development time, Yuke's would be hard at work creating quite the few new match types. In addition to the previous installment's selection of match types, we see the inclusion of many fan favorites here in Know Your Role. I mean, check this out. Casket match, new. Hell in a Cell, new. Iron Man, new. Ladder, new. Table, new. TLC, new. Slobber Knocker, new. Talk about spoiling us. So, where should we start first? The ladder match is what you'd come to expect it to be. A championship belt is hung high above the ring, and the first player to retrieve it will be declared the winner. Unlike other games from the era, there aren't any meters to master or buttons to mash. Simply press the circle to jump for the belt, and if timed right, voila. Pair this with the fact that the AI doesn't stay down for very long, and that everything moves so quickly, and you're left with a round of gameplay that can be either won or lost rather suddenly. But nevertheless, this one should result in a few edge-of-your-seat moments. The table match was one of my personal favorites during this time, so you can bet that I was extremely excited to see it included here, with options for single or tornado tag versions. You'll need to put your opponent through a table to win the match, which can be done by either performing a grapple move or diving attack with your opponent on the table. This will most likely become a tedious task without first wearing down your foe a bit, which is necessary to grab that win and helps to prevent matches from ending too quickly. Hell in a Cell. Well, they tried. I mean, come on guys, what even is this? So as you might remember me mentioning in my previous review, if you watched that eons ago, this is basically a cage match with a roof on it. But I mean, hey, don't get me wrong, it's better than nothing, and I'd much rather have it than not. And honestly, I don't even remember if I noticed the sizological error as a kid playing it. Yes, I made that word up. You can go tumbling out of the structure, climb the structure, get thrown off the structure, dance on the structure, and break through the roof of the structure, if you can get your opponent to ever follow you up there. Come on. Come, get up here. Basically, it's very structured. So there is plenty to do here, and even though it may appear slightly incorrect, it doesn't take away from the fun factor. TLC, possibly one of the greatest match types to ever grace a wrestling game. Take the formula of the previously mentioned ladder match, add in some big wooden tables and foldable metal chairs, and buddy, you're in for a treat. With two different variations offered up here, matches can either be won by traditional means of pinfall, submission, or knockout, which, yes, knockouts still occur quite frequently in this game, or by climbing the ladder and grabbing the belt hung high above the canvas if you've selected the title option. The Iron Man match places two wrestlers in the ring with a 15-minute time limit. Players earn points by way of pinfalls or submissions, with the winner being the player who scored the most points when that timer hits 0. There's also the option to throw a special referee into the mix, which you can oddly beat the hell out of without any consequence. And one detail I can really appreciate is the fact that no matter who you select, they'll make their way into the match donning the black and white stripes. But this can also cause some strange attire anomalies. Can't say that I ever really played this one too much, but I do like having the option. And touching more on the special referee match option, you'll see not only the standard inclusion, but also the ability to select two referees at once, one for each participant, and for some reason they'll fight each other? What's going on here? The casket match. Good Lord, was this another one that I think most of us highly anticipated. I mean, it's really quite the simple format. Get closed into the casket and you lose, but this was such an ambitious addition that you couldn't help but to play this one over and over again. And you gotta love how they swing these giant objects around like tennis rackets. In fact, that can be said about a lot of these weapons. Now, why exactly is this man beating another man with a couch? Because WWF. The very last new match type here is, by God, the Slobber Knocker. This one is a true test of endurance because the foes just keep on coming. This one restricts the action to being in the ring, and despite the difficulty setting that the player has selected in the options menu, the gameplay here increases the challenge factor as the match progresses. It cares not what you picked. Of the returning match types, not much has changed. You can still do this, and a little of that, mixed in with this for good measure. Okay, so the cage has obviously changed color slightly for some reason, but other than that, it's basically all what we saw in the previous title. Well, that is unless we're talking about the hardcore and anywhere fall. Yes, that's still what it's called. Because this game takes the Backstage element, which debuted in the previous title, and expands on it quite a bit. You'll come across more areas, more interactive environments, and new ways to destroy your opponent, like hopping into a forklift and honking your opponent to death. Or if you want to recreate that famous "I did it for The Rock" angle, you can have Stone Cold run over by a car.
You son of a bitch!
But let's talk about these new backstage areas in more depth, because this category deserves some recognition if you ask me. And I know you didn't necessarily ask me, but you know, you're kind of watching the video, so why not head on down to the locker room and beat your opponent senseless with a lamp? Actually, I don't even know if that's a lamp. What is that? Or take to the dressing room where you can... Wait a minute. There's a locker room and a dressing room? What's the difference? Maybe you'd rather head out to the hall, climb up onto a vending machine, and watch while your opponent helplessly struggles to comprehend that you are now completely unreachable and there is nothing he can do about it. The VIP room is a nice place to grab a seat or a plant and enjoy that glorious view of the city back there. Ah, very nice. Over in the diner, you can dive from tables and even change the in-game music by throwing your opponent into the jukebox. You can cool off in the Plaza Fountain or take to not one but two different restaurants, one of which is none other than WWF New York. I don't know about you guys, but when this place was open, I was like 15 years old and would have probably killed somebody to get the chance to visit it, but fate had other plans. In the kitchen, you can not only manifest explosions and crack craniums with giant melons, but you can also slam your opponents through steel tables, folding them instantly like paper. By the way, I love that this is just a Denny's logo with the word restaurant inside of it. There are also the stage areas of the arena, which is always one of my favorite spots to take the action, as I am a set design junkie, and being able to see these up close and personal was always a huge plus in my book. There are even a few hidden areas like the shower, which can be accessed by breaking through this wall in the locker room, or the boiler room, which can be entered once this gate here has been destroyed. Kind of a cool touch which definitely helps promote exploration here. That's not even all of the new backstage areas in SmackDown too. I mean, really, they were quite generous. And honestly, as a testosterone-fueled teenager, I spent a lot of time here. I mean, part of me can kind of see why EA wanted to create an entire game based on backstage wrestling. I said part of me, and I said kind of. And to top things off here, there are many ways to enjoy these backstage areas, not limited to just one-on-one matches. You can also select from Tornado Tag, Handicap, Triple Threat, Fatal 4-Way, and Special Referee. They are all here for the taking, so enjoy it. We do see some extended load times during the Royal Rumble match, like twice as long as the first game, which can halt the action quite a bit. 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 Halt the action. In fact, load times everywhere have increased here, but these awesome loading screens sort of make up for that. I really thought these were just the coolest when this game dropped, and I remember actually thinking of ways to try to print these so I could plaster them all over my walls like the sadistic 15-year-old I was. But back to the Rumble for a sec, because one thing that always bothered me was the fact that this match type is restricted to the Raw is War stage. Sure, you can change the ring canvas and aprons to say Royal Rumble, but I mean, OCD, man. As you can see, the game's visuals haven't really changed, with character models appearing very close to their previous versions. In fact, some appear to have not changed at all, while some of the others were upgraded to reflect appearance updates or just better resemble their intended target. And while the updated attires all pretty much look fantastic for the hardware, it is sort of a shame that we don't get any alternate selections, especially given the fact that the N64 THQ titles and Acclaim titles have been doing so for a few years by this point. But seeing as both SmackDown games were released under pretty short development deadlines and not far apart from another, I don't think that many of us expected a stark contrast here for options such as these. Taking a look at the arena selection, we don't see much change for this one either. The Raw, SmackDown, and house show / pay-per-view stages all return, with the Raw set being the only one to receive an update based on the most recent real-life changes to the design. You can still mix and match these sets with different ring options, just in case you wanted to create your own pay-per-view arena, or just make some sort of weird super show. It is a bit odd though that they continued to include the canvas options with logos atop, as this was rarely seen in the promotion and looks a bit out of place for those like myself who have an eye for these sort of details. It kind of drives me nuts. The arena environments themselves don't differ much either, but we do see the addition of commentary tables with two-dimensional renditions of our beloved narrators. This, of course, for me meant destruction, chaos, tyranny. Even with the addition of commentary tables, we still don't get the pleasure of having Michael Cole and Jim Ross call our matches, though this was something that was rumored to be included earlier in development. In fact, the sound department in general hasn't changed much at all. If you liked what the first game had to offer, then this one should appeal to you as well, because it's much of the same. If you were disappointed with SmackDown's Create a Superstar mode, well then, listen up, because this one included here should make up for that. It's been completely overhauled, with many of the features that had made this mode so great in other titles now appearing here in Know Your Role. Unlike last time, you now have complete custom control of how your created wrestler will look from head to toe. You can select from many different facial items, attire options, hair, and accessories, instead of being limited to pre-constructed sections. But hey, if that's your thing, you can still do that as well, because Yuke's decided to leave that option in the game, just in case anybody out there actually enjoyed that format. And actually, I'd like to make an argument for it here, because there are many assets in the game that can help for the quick and easy creation of superstars not present on the roster, like Jeff Jarrett, Goldust, and as I previously mentioned, the pre-ABA version of Undertaker. Some of the character pieces from the first game are even included here, like the blonde-haired version of Al Snow, young innocent Stephanie McMahon. Oh, look how sweet she was back then. And even modified versions of the current roster, like this badass version of the American Badass, and of course the glorious mullet version of Eddie Guerrero. They even give us some alternate attires to play with for the likes of Perry Saturn, Godfather, and D-Lo, just to name a few, if you feel like creating them. And over on the move assignment side of things, we see a lot of taunts and finishers from wrestlers not in the game, like the inclusion of Kevin Nash's Jackknife Powerbomb, and of course no THQ WWF game is complete without the Insider's Edge. There really is a whole lot more offered up here, and it opens up this mode quite a bit. I didn't spend much time creating in the first game, but beefing up the customization options really changed the way I experienced this mode here in Know Your Role, and allowed me to further expand my roster with those completely original creations and those real-life wrestlers who weren't in the game for one reason or another. I can state with all validity that I wasted many hours of my youthful days here. Something that was quite ahead of its time here is the Create a Taunt feature, which, as you might have already guessed, allows the player to create custom taunts for their wrestlers, so that you can truly let your creative juices flow. Why did I say that? That just sounds gross. This is one of those features that you can choose to take seriously to recreate some of your favorite wrestlers' movements, or go full-blown absolutely insane with your taunt, which I'm always sort of partial to. And while you're at it, you can assign managers to accompany superstars during their matches in the Create a Manager mode. And speaking of managers, just be mindful that they will not only fight each other from time to time, but will also focus their sights on you. Damn it. Moving back to the creation tools, you have the ability to construct your own group of hell-raising hooligans with Create a Stable. Finish this off with the returning Create a Pay-Per-View feature, and it's clear that Yuke's knew exactly where a lot of us fans spent the majority of our time with these kinds of games, and wanted to deliver us the goods. And last but definitely most certainly not least, we have the game's season mode. So let's start with what didn't return, and that's the preseason mode from the previous game when playing as a created wrestler. These custom superstars will, however, start at the bottom of the ranks in whatever division they represent, opposed to higher caliber names who are instantly closer to the top. Players can only compete for one division at a time, but can leave said division if they choose to do so, as long as they aren't holding the title. We also see more matches incorporated into each calendar month, with 2 episodes of Raw, 2 episodes of SmackDown, and a pay-per-view event, totaling 5 matches for the player. One of the biggest complaints here during the game's release was the fact that gamers were forced to watch these little battle meters for any of the skipped matches, and while they're still a lot quicker than watching the match play out, they feel a bit unnecessary and can become a true test of patience for those that already don't have much. While we still get some of the less significant cutscenes, such as wrestlers arriving to the arena, cutting promos, and dare I say, backstage assaults, they've also implemented quite a few heavily storied segments that play out as well, based on real-life feuds that happened around this time in the WWF. These are, however, based on specific wrestlers, so if you don't happen to be playing as them, you'll more or less be observing from a safe distance rather than partaking in the matches. This is also where you'll unlock the game's hidden wrestlers as you progress, with everything becoming available by completing the 5th year of this mode. The changes made here came upon mixed reviews from critics, with some enjoying the new direction that they decided to take things, and others, well, not so much. Despite all of this, the game received raving reviews, with Game Informer giving it a 9 out of 10, PSM gave it an 8, EGM, of course, an 8.83, IGN gave it an 8.9, and so on and so forth. PlayStation fans have been long awaiting a solid wrestling game for the console after many had tried and most under-delivered. But with SmackDown 2 came a packed roster, an expanded season mode, matches galore, and more create modes than one could shake a stick at, or a couch. It is for this very reason that SmackDown 2 lives on in the heart of many as the greatest wrestling game on the PS1. And even if that crazy arcade-style gameplay isn't for you, it's safe to say that just about everybody can at least appreciate the accomplishments that this game made. This series would continue over on the PS2 where, in my opinion, would reach highs that would never again be topped, reaching across many generations of platforms. Ukes is no longer part of the team that puts together the WWE's yearly game releases. Somewhat yearly. But they have secured a new development deal working on the upcoming debut venture by AEW, so we can all hope that the glory of the old SmackDown days might yet again return, though it seems many are doubtful. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. If you did, click that thumbs up, and if you have something to say, well, say it. Leave a comment down below and we can have a discussion. Drop a sub if you want to see future videos, and check out some of my other reviews. I've only been doing them for what seems like a lifetime at this point. But until next time, I am Nicotine. I will be back, and I hope you'll be watching.